Boom. Whoa.
That's strange.
Boom. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, Seahorse Medicine Cafe. I'm Thundercloud. My mum calls me James, washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after it rains. Let's have some fun and linguistic games on this 20th of September 2023. I've got a pen in my hand, you see. We're about to do some poetry. If you flow with me, you'll see what poetry we've written tonight, freely. The challenge was to my poets here when they get here, to write for 5 minutes on excuses. So some have. So thank you for that. And next week we might do the same thing. Just pop a word in there on the way out. Because last week it was ocean and sky, and we got 3 good ones. Saul did one, Sky did one, and I did some haiku and stuff like that. All right, well, let's begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians and of the land on which we transmit the Kamilaroi and the band by, and acknowledge sovereignty has never been ceded. And now, this week, I'm going to start with my excuses one first. Wasn't me, Dolly did it. The dog ate my homework. My sister hid it. Actually, I'm a jerk. I was scared. I take full responsibility. This cross now must be bared. I lied and cried. I dagged the first and last time I wagged, left school during sport, caught drowning in guilt, spilt milk. I don't know what that was meant to say, but it's wrong. I can't remember. Nuts, no ifs or buts, just excuses and a deeper hole. That's it. Yeah, and a deeper hole. So yeah, I sort of really liked. The first thing that came up for me was responsibility and not giving excuses. So yeah, but anyway, did you hear that? No?
What was that?
You'll have to watch it now. Don't make excuses for being late. All right. Well, last night on Chillin' Tuesday, I read out Colin Newsom's poetry from The Green Tree Snake. Now, Colin Newsom's a very interesting character. On the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame Facebook page, I did put a link to a audio oral interview with Col Newsom as he was known, good mate of Keith Garvey, also a writer. And so you can actually hear his oral history. Fascinating fellow, born in 1916. Died in 2008, so that made him around about 92, more or less. He was born up there at New Glen Innes. His family had a property, but he kind of in their family history, a couple of generations before him, they were cattle duffers, which is how they made their wealth up there. So stealing cattle or whatever, apparently, allegedly, according to him. But then he was a boxer. He joined Jimmy Sharman's boxing tent for a couple of years. He also served in World War II because he was a good rider and a stockman and that kind of stuff. So the ones I'll be reading out tonight actually are 3 poems of his from World War II and one other. To begin with, the one that I'm going to start with. So I'm going to actually start with Jimmy Sharman's boxing trip first. And it's quite odd because I wouldn't generally have gone and picked out this book. However, one of the things that this Arcadia Theatre was used for in its lifetime, and it was built in 1929, was boxing. You can imagine the hall out there full of drunk guys, betting, gambling, cheering and punching the shit out of each other. And a lot of it actually would have been staged, because he talks about this in his interview, how a lot of these, he would be the local ring-in, and he would fight the same guy every night, every week. But yeah, so we'll start with Jimmy Sharman's troop. I've been a stockman, drove a barman, said this year to his mates, and have toured with Jimmy Sharman in 4 Australian states. A challenge to all comers, old Jimmy used to say he was 60 summers if he was a blanky day. I've had a rib and nose and jaw bust in many country towns and wrestled in the sawdust with 100 local clowns, Queensland sugar lumpers and men who cut the cane would challenge Sharman's thumpers for glory and for gain. Ring the bell and beat the big drum in Western New South Wales. Here's a farmer from the lignum, as hard as horseshoe nails. Push the crowd back to the canvas, surging forward like a flood, all excited. Every fan was screaming for our blood. Down the Riverina, where they grow the wheat and corn, here a man can throw a wiener if he gets him by the horn. Wrestle with the fella, throw him on the mat, and a woman's umbrella comes down and knocks you flat. Victorian timber workers and tillers in the soil fight like wounded Gurkhas when their blood begins to boil. Toe to toe and rally, stagger backwards to the wall, fight the champion of the Mallee, head and shoulders over all. Oh, the glory and glamour, gleam and glamour and the rush of Sydney show, where 100 fighters clamour for the right to have a go. How the challengers would wrangle and shout in disaccord, some intent to fight or strangle tried to clamber up the board. But they were wiser men and sadder when they got their senses back, for Rudd Key at the ladder was a tough old nut to crack. I've travelled far and fast, man, and I'll roam further yet, but the tour with Jimmy Sharman is one I don't regret. When the drums of memory rally with recollections bells and a scent of sawdust sally through the sheep yards rancid smells, then in fancy on the showgrounds my heart will take a glove while babes ride merry-go-rounds and all the world's in love. So yeah, Jimmy Sharman's boxers. Very interesting fellow, Colin.
Yes, they had the Jimmy Sharman's boxing troupe used to be here after the Gora show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then they had the boxing troupe down in the back sheds there and all the weightlifting and heavens knows just only a few years ago.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And Ray Dunn, the butcher from here, used to do all the boxing stuff. And yes.
I wonder where the Sullivans boxed when they came here before this was built. Yeah. They were the great boxers.
Yes.
All right, this one is now moving on to Col Newsom's war poem, Remember, New Guinea, 1942. Remember the New Guinea convoy, the handshakes, good luck and Godspeed with the flying boats droning above us, and the little corvette in the lead. Recall how the decks of the troop ships and the cabins were crowded with men returned from the European conflict, going northward to fight once again. Remember the clash in the jungle with the movement of men to the fore and the watchword, remember Malaya. And this is for Singapore. Remember my oath we'll remember. When the Japs have their backs to the wall, they'll pay for their brutal outrages and the prisoners they slew in Rabaul. The Australian is famed the world over for loyalty strong to a mate, but the world produced no other soldier to hate like an Aussie can hate. Their blood has been spilled and made richer the African's deserts so far, and the front lines of Europe and Asia have shown who the stock troopers are. Remember the widows and orphans left mourning their glorious slain. Their cobbers will always remember and prove that they died not in vain. Next one, our allies at Atherton, 1943. With a corporal and a sergeant and a dozen other ranks, I was eating tasty hot dogs in a cafe full of Yanks. 2 Yankees had a difference and went outside to fight. You could hear the blankers yelling, just like redskins in the night. So I was self-elected the fight to referee. But one fighter lost his bearings and got tangled up with me. I flung him to the pavement. Money jingled in the street and I commandeered his silver while he staggered to his feet. Then he rushed in and continued to contest the battle grin. And the goddamn son of a bitch he fought had several flasks on him. They sprouted from his pockets like a German ack-ack gun, or cannon from a battleship, or heat rays from the sun. Very deftly, I removed them from his shirt and tunic coat, saying, should you break a bottle, you might cut your flaming throat. On the provost corpse arriving, amid glory, thumps and din, they roughly pulled the Yanks apart and run the blankers in. And a big 6th Divvy soldier who had watched the whole affair said, good old 7th Divvy, shake hands and put her there. So I handed round the whiskey and the boys expressed their thanks, and we drank to Aussie victories and confusion of the Yanks. But I saved one lovely bottle for my mate, let's call him Dutch. He drank it in one swallow and said, don't like whiskey much. That's fact. And then the final one here I've got for you, it's Disembarkation, 7th Division, New Guinea to Cairns, 1943. Sun-browned faces, silent, watching the rock-bound coast receding. Showed no tremor of excitement at thoughts of going home. War-scarred hands upon the railing had carried wounded cobbers through the hellholes of New Guinea, under fire through the loam. Thoughts of war-racked soldiers sleeping with the wounded down below deck, remembering crosses on Kokoda, silent tokens of the slain. Then the sun-browned Queensland children, pyjama clad at twilight, waving from the high verandas, told our hearts 'twas not in vain. And that's Colin Newsom, the green tree snake. Now, so this week what happened, so Sunday I was here and Cole's son came in and said, do you know Colin Newsom? Yeah, I've heard of him, I don't know him, but I think I've got his book, so I went and got this out. And so I was did a bit of research and found the oral history online, and it's quite fascinating to listen to. And then, decided to read this out last night and a bit more tonight. Well, today I was here and I had to pass on a letter to a friend of mine, Jan Day, who popped in. And I mentioned Cole Newsom, and she said, oh yeah, he used to pop into my shop all the time. We were good friends. And yeah, she told me a bit about him and that. So anyway, now, who's going to come on up here first tonight?
Oh, I'll come.
Ashley, all right. Well, I've got one more to go of my own that I'll quickly read out while you're just preparing yourself to get on up. And this one bottom of here. All right, this one was written 5 days ago. It's a little bit of sort of play on this. It's the opposite. It's a mix-up of Hey Diddle Diddle, the cat and the fiddle. The cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such whatever. Some people say it's fun, others say it's sport. Now, like, I don't care. But the dish ran away with the spoon. Yeah. It still happened, whether he laughed at the fun or the sport. Yeah, I'd rather laugh at the fun, because sport you want to cheer at. Here we go. On the dark side of the moon, you'll find a cow, but no spoon, because the cow got her wish, and the spoon ran off with the dish. The cow never hangs about long, wants to hear a cat fiddle song with a laughing dog having a run, singing Hey Diddle Diddle for fun. That's that. Yeah, that's remixed. Yeah. All right. Ashley, welcome. Welcome back for second week in a row.
Well, yes, well, I had 6 weeks of flu that you do get when you're 72 in a row, unfortunately, but I try to keep up my levels of natural immunity because, as said, when I'm 80, something really nasty might trough along, and I don't want to be able to not get up out of the trough. Once you have 5 in sequence flu shots, you lose your immunology, and they're wonderful, immunological system. They're wonderful, the flu shots, but I don't want to become obligatorily needful, although some people have to be for obvious reasons. Well, in 5 minutes I did this, 6:02, and by 6:07 I'll have so many lines I won't need any excuses. Excuses, pardon, forgivenesses. Well, some cultures don't have any such thing. You don't get much excuse in Chinese culture. The third one. My regret is that I didn't win. Tried hard, no excuses. And my last one that took up the 300 seconds. Is that right? I'm slow tonight, 300 seconds, 560s. Towards dawn, he waited for the light to reveal his sword. To eat or not to eat, better not to eat. To live or to die, better to die. And he did, thinking about Zen warriors and King Oedipus at Colonus as the chopper came down. There's a very fascinating line in Tolstoy where, when he was a young officer, gunnery officer I think, in the Crimea, and they all go out to die and they say in unison, hurrah! That's one way of approaching it, isn't it? Well, I didn't start off with my 3 rulers, wooden rulers, hypothesis, implication, and perimeter. Hip hip hooray! Hypothesis, implication, and perimeter. What have I been reading? I've been reading Leibniz and thinking day by day about his concept of perfection, which isn't an evolving, exploding thing, centrifugally, but is possibly an implosive form in the Platonic sense. You know, when he says that God would pick out of the many thousands of triangles, he would pick an equilateral triangle, or out of the many thousands of geometric forms, God would give us and gave us the circle. So I've been thinking about that and what that idea of perfection means, because whenever I'm with political scientists or philosophers, we always end up talking about forms, the concept of formation and forms. Order, disorder, yin and yang. I will read one little piece tonight from Les Murray, just the beginning of the Bulahdelah Tari holiday song cycle. The people are eating dinner in that country north of Leggs Lake, behind fly wire and Venetians. In the dimmed, cool town, people eat lunch, plying knives, forks with a peek-in sound, with a tuck-in sound. They're thinking about relatives and inventory. They are talking about customers and visitors. In the country of Memorial Iron, on the creek-facing hills there, they are thinking about bean plants and the rings of tank water, of growing a pumpkin by Christmas. Rolling a cigarette, they say thoughtfully yes, and their companion nods, considering. Fresh sheets have been spread and tucked tight. Childhood rooms have been seen to. For this is the season when children return with their children to the place of Bingham's ghost, of the old timber wharf of the big flood that time. The country of the rationalised farms, of the day and night farms, of the Pitt Street farms, of the Shire engineer and many other rumours of the tractor crankcase furred with chaff. The places of sitting down near ferns, the snake fair places, the cattle crossing long ago places. It's very intriguing how, in terms of syntax and diction, he builds up all these lines, almost, I would say, perpendicular lines, and they drop away, but very weightily and very meaningfully. You don't get a feeling of sudden disjuncture or loss. So there we are, Mr. Murray still with us in spirit tonight. Quite a great poem, I think, the Bulahdelah Tari holiday song cycle. As I go tonight, I've been doing a lot of reading and research into the voice, and it seems to me it boils down to a simple thing. It's an act of respect that really doesn't bring any empowerment to Aboriginal people, but maybe they like to have you shake their hand. It's like bringing someone from next door to a tennis club who was forced to hand over their land to the tennis club, inviting them to come onto the board as an advisor. So it seems it doesn't have any real power or purchase beyond that. But many of us feel it's a pleasant gesture in a world that's has its vicissitudes and shades of grey. I didn't say which way I'll vote, or it doesn't matter. I think that's a reasonable metaphor for describing what's going on. That person who's invited to join the board of the club and give specialist advice doesn't have any power to change a constitution. No. That has been subtly changed and then not. Whenever a war seems to come, Australians freeze into a type of conservative implosion. But perhaps that's what's going on now as we have the threat of war.
Yeah. I think La Rochefoucauld said, hypocrisy is the tribute vice pays to virtue. And somebody else famous, who I can't even remember the name of, said, at least they pay a tribute.
Well, sadly it doesn't. I don't think it does much. But it's been used by all sorts of links on the chain politically to manipulate, and I don't think it was meant to do that originally.
May I please have your hat?
My hat.
Yeah. I need to be a gherkin.
Okay.
A gherkin.
You're going weird.
Yeah. As the operator of the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, my political views do not reflect what the establishment has. No opinion, because it's an establishment. My opinion, you can look on my Facebook page whether I'm voting yes or no. It's quite clear. And I agree with what Ashley said 100%.
It's very sad, actually.
Yeah.
Well, my students used to say to me, you gave us the Bible, sir, but you took our land.
Yep. All native title is classified as, what is it, vacant Crown land or something?
Yeah, terra nullius.
Still vacant. Anyway, gherkin was the prompt. Thanks, Sky. I wanted a prompt and she said gherkin. There was a jar of gherkin. So I had to go like, oh, what rhymes with gherkin? Well, zircon, which is a crystal. So there we go. I'm a gherkin. That's why that gherkin head. In a jar there once lived a gherkin, so green who wore a bright yellow jerkin. He was pickled and salty, he tasted quite malty, and he dreamed of life with a merkin. One day he met a zircon who was into flirting. They danced and twirled and the gherkin unfurled and they made a sweet pickled parton. They worked in a circus together and travelled the world wherever. The gherkin juggled and the zircon twirled, making the audience laugh at whatever. One day they were performing in Durkin when a gust of wind blew the zircon. She landed in a puddle and got all befuddled, but the gherkin still loved his pickled zircon. He said, "You're the most beautiful zircon I've seen, as a fruit with a crystal, life as a dream." He picked her up and gave her a hug. He said, "Dear zircon, I don't give a tug. I'm the luckiest gherkin to be on your team." So if you ever see a gherkin in a jerkin dancing with a zircon, don't be taken aback. All that matters, Jack, is a pickle loves a crystal. Yes, gherkin loves zircon. That's it, eh? Thanks very much, Sky, for that prompt. You got a limerick poem about a zircon and a gherkin.
You look like an olive, actually.
Well, actually, because there's one more. Hang on. Can I have that back? Because there's one more. It's actually, this one's got...
You're channeling right through that.
Oh, actually, well, I need to be green, you know, because this is a quick one. There once was a man whose skin turned green. He could stand on a golf course and not be seen. He went home to his wife. She squealed with delight, and then she rode his gherkin for the entire night. Thanks again. Sky. Then there was a funny fellow, and this is what he said: "I once stood on my head until my ears turned red. I couldn't even swallow, and my nose also bled. Standing on my ears and head, I am easily led." Okay, who's coming up next? Are you ready, Sky, with your
prompt?
your excuse? Don't make excuses.
Okay. Oh, bloody excuses. Yeah. Don't have time, just excuses. Don't have money, just excuses. Getting old, just excuses. It's too cold, just excuses. It's too hot, just excuses. It's my lot, just excuses. Getting late, just excuses. My tired state, just excuses. Nothing done, nothing gained, if all you do is just complain again and again and again. Refrain from your excuses. Do the do and do the done and some, so then you won't feel so insane. Because excuses are just useless and get nothing done.
Ooh.
With a crystal.
Yeah, it does. Now we have a new reader, a new person here. Do you want me to read? I can read your poem out if you don't want to.
Well, my mother was a writer and a poet.
Yeah.
And I wrote songs sometimes, but I've never really considered myself
All right.
anything.
Well, you just wrote this. What's your surname? Jamie.
Hudson.
Jamie Hudson. He's our anonymous poet. He's not anonymous now. Yeah. He's just dropped in, and tonight, the prompt was excuses. So you out there, you've got 5 minutes to write about excuses, and don't make excuses. Here we are. Thanks, Jamie Hudson.
You're welcome.
Excuses. They say there are no excuses. He muses to shoot, lie or steal from. No, what? Sorry? To shoot, lie or steal from. No home to live in when the season has changed. Cooler weather, birds of a feather flock towards the unknown certainty. The old souls in the new world, living the tale surrendered by fervor, what's that? Fervency, unseen, constricted, bowed and taught, not digested. The bitter pill is hard to swallow. I don't know if that goes into is hard, not digested, to swallow. Yeah. When they sell their excuses, fear, victims for the false reality. Oh, for the victims of a false reality. I'm following the arrows.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, it's all good.
Thank you. Liz.
Thank you. Here we go. All right, now, there was something else that I did want to read out. Oh, well, here we go. This one, this is a funny one. It's not true, actually. So just don't be offended, because, like, I have a face like a wrinkly bum, thanks to my dad and my mum. I don't understand. They're pretty. How I got a face so shitty? My dad is a handsome bloke, and I am a family joke. And very beautiful is my mum, but my butt face is a bum. Dum. That's all. Yeah. Ugly, yeah. Absolutely stinky. Now, before I invite Gabriel up, are you going to come up?
James, I've got to get a book to read out.
All right.
I'll do it my way, my poultry, and I'll just do what's in the book.
Okay.
Yeah, or what I write. So just
Do
find
you want to go before me, or do you want to
Yeah.
be last?
Now, well, you can go first, and then
Alright.
I can, while James is finding my book.
Whatever you want
Okay.
to do is all right.
All right. Which one do you want?
If you've got one on Myra Sweeney, did you find
I'll
it?
go and have a look again.
I'd have a
Yeah,
look and
see
see
how
if
we
you
go.
can find it. Yes,
All right.
Um,
So here's one I wrote on the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame this week to inspire people to write. How do you write? Because in the words of Herb Wharton, poetry is just thoughts written down. That's it.
I wouldn't agree with that. but
If you want to write a poem, this is what you do. Get a bit of paper and a pen or pencil too. Or you could use your phone or computer key, sitting all alone, write your thoughts as poetry. You can rhyme it, style it, or write free verse. You can meter, make it rhythmic, be polite or curse. But poetry is your thoughts that you can write down. It's cathartic, of course, to share your poetry round. Begin to write your story or tell us what you see. Funny, serious or gory, everyone can write poetry. Write it very fast or write it slow, about a feeling from the heart. Even you can have a go. Ready, set, go, start.
Who wrote that?
Me.
Oh.
who else?
Begin to write your story or tell us what you see. Funny, serious or gory, everyone can write poetry. Write it very fast or write it slow. About a feeling from the heart, everyone can have a go. Ready, set, go, start. Yeah. Gabriel. Really well done, Lee. There's a car out there.
Hi everybody. Last week I borrowed about somewhere between 8 to 10 books from the Poetry Hall of Fame library, and I'm going to select one book at a time. That should see us through to November. This one is the Mersey poets. There's 3 of them in the book: Adrian Henry, Roger McGough and Brian Patton. I've read every single one. Adrian Henry I didn't think was relatable enough. They're nearly all love poems describing the very particular characteristics of the various